be right here with you. In this world of ticking clocks, I hope I'm getting through. So close your eyes. Do you feel the same? Only thing that matters without change. I will let you into my mind's deep. Recover the fallen tears that have been long asleep. Lights are out and heaven's open. We can be everything we want. Oh, stop the clocks, the bees are humming in between the contrasts of our souls. Stop the clocks, the bees are humming in between the contrasts of our soul. Get out of your skin. Only this matters. Let it in.
Kendra, you're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Surprise Your Spirit show. I am your host, Kendra from Surprise Your Spirit. How is everybody on this here in Saskatchewan? It is a cold and rainy evening. However, I won't complain because it's not minus 40 like it was 3 weeks ago. So, I want to welcome back all of my listeners, my faithful listeners who have been with me from the beginning, ones who have joined along the way, and I want to welcome anyone new to the show. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am a psychic medium, a natural born energy healer from Saskatchewan, Canada, and I have a mind, body, spirit wellness business. And I built this show so that I can help others to connect with other healers and teachers who can help people to add to their journey in positive ways. So we talk about anything on this show regarding to energy, new age, joy, authenticity. So basically any topic, and I have guests who can help you to add to the joy on your journey. So if you know of someone who should be on my show, or maybe you'd like to come on my show and tell your story, you can always email me at kendra@surpriseyourspirit.com. And you can check me out on surpriseyourspirit.com right now. And just, if people have been missing me, my business Facebook page has been down for a while. I'm doing some restructuring of my business. And so it'll be down probably for most of the summer and go back up. But you can always visit my website at www.surpriseyourspirit.com. And yeah. So welcome to my show. We've had some wonderful guests over the past few weeks, and tonight is no exception to that. So this evening I have Carolin Hauser joining me. So if you know of Carolin or have heard of her, this will be a treat for you. And if you haven't, it'll still be a treat for you. Carolin is a German-trained naturopathic doctor, a humanistic psychotherapist, and a family constellations facilitator. She is also the author of a book called Blossom, The 7 Steps to Sexual Healing, as well as an up-and-coming book called The Pleasure IQ. And she is an internationally recognized speaker and teacher on subjects of spirituality, healing, and women's empowerment, and has been so for almost 2 decades. So she loves to combine her knowledge to help women, and for those brave men listeners out there, to have abundant, love-filled lives that flow with a great sense of ease. And her work is based on the intersection of where the human body and its experience meets the past and even ancestral trauma, and shows people how to find their true sense of self, and that it's of one's own good to do so. So she is from Santa Barbara, California, where she teaches and speaks and travels to host healing retreats all over the world. So I would like to welcome Carolin to my show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining me. So why don't you first off go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, Carolin, before I start grilling you and drilling you with some things that I want to know.
Yeah.
Anything extra that you'd like to add, or let the listeners know about yourself?
Yeah, my story has really 2 parts. One of it is that I really thought I had a golden childhood, and then got sick with anorexia and bulimia when I was 10 and didn't quite know why, and was really suffering till my early 20s, until my mom introduced me to family constellations work, which I didn't know what it was. And at that time, she basically just paid for me to go to a weekend workshop, and I attended. And within 3 months, I was able to shake the eating disorders, and within 6 months, I was completely healed. And that experience basically made me look into becoming a healer. I had friends that I told the story to, and they were saying, "Oh my God, if you found something that can heal eating disorders, you have to learn this." And so I dedicated my entire 20s to just learning about healing, getting my degrees. And by the end of my 20s, I thought I knew it all. I was starting to work with people. And then something very interesting happened, which was when my first child, turned 3. With her turning 3, all of a sudden I had memories of childhood sexual abuse come back. And with that, all of a sudden it made sense why I had gotten the eating disorders and so forth. So it brought a lot of clarity into my life. And also I was kind of thrown because I thought I had worked through everything. And out of that was my book born, because I felt at that point that I knew so much about healing, and that I really should apply what I've known to help myself. And then also the whole time I had a very deep sense that I wasn't doing this for myself. I was doing it, for all the other people. And then the part two of my story is fast forward 6 years later. So I published my book 6 years ago. So it took me 3 years to write it. So during the time that I was writing it, I had a complete physical breakdown because my marriage was falling apart. We had to go through bankruptcy, and my adrenals were completely shot. And during that experience, I left my body, and essentially was told by spirit, for lack of a better description, that if I didn't learn to make the pursuit of pleasure, like real true pleasure or joy, my priority, that it would be very hard for me to get better and change my circumstances. Or in other words, it was really clear that the promise was made that if I was going to learn how to allow pleasure in all areas of my life would transform completely. And so in the last 4 years, my life has really transformed tremendously. So I had a first healing kind of around in my early 20s from the eating disorders, and then the second big healing was really 4 years ago, after realizing that I was the one that had gotten myself into a complete state of lack and how I had done that. And so my second book is all centered around those awarenesses. And for the last 4 years, I've really focused on teaching people about pleasure and how to allow themselves pleasure. And oftentimes, having been sexually molested or carrying ancestral trauma is part of the reason why we don't allow it. So Blossom, my first book, and then the Pleasure IQ, they actually really go hand in hand. And in my own healing journey, the sexual healing came first, and then I was able to think or hear about pleasure, before I wasn't even able to do that. So that's my story in short. I now live with my second husband, who's my true divine soulmate. My first husband, we were a good fit, but I never felt like he was my true soulmate. Paul is my true soulmate, and we've bought a house in the Caribbean. I've served over 5,000 people in the last 4 years, and my body is not 100% yet, but it's in a very good space. I have lots of energy, and I'm feeling completely different than just a very short amount of time ago.
Wow. Well, it's been a pretty healing time for a lot of people. It's not just you. I know, like, in general, even with my own business in the past 5 years, it's just been something that's come into the paths of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to switch your life, right?
Yeah.
And you have an incredible story. I have one that is much kind of the same, and I love it. And I actually have your book, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I am looking forward to it. I also have a copy for my listeners that I'll give away, which I normally do to someone.
Nice.
So now this brings me to another thing that has been huge also, Carolyn. We actually talked about it on one of my other shows. I think it might have been with Lily Sanders. I can't remember. It was just recently though, and it's with regards to the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you feel about it and its purpose and what the point of it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Me Too movement is the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement. The Me Too movement is a really good first step because it's a sign that people are starting to get out of shame and guilt. So for me, and you can probably appreciate this being an energy healer, I look at everything through the lens of energy and different vibrational levels. And so shame and guilt are two of the most low vibrational frequencies that you can be living in or carrying. And shame and guilt are the reasons why people don't talk, right? Why they don't come out. So the fact that people are talking and that they're coming out is a sign that we're starting to loosen the grip of the shame and the guilt. And that's a good sign. And shame and guilt, if we look at it in kind of a measurable value, are vibrating at 20 or 30. Courage is 200. Courage is really the threshold where it goes from energy not being life-sustaining to energy being life-sustaining. So there's still a big difference between having a life where actually things are flowing and going well above 200 and, from 20 or 30, right? So getting out of shame and guilt is a good step. Getting to anger is at 70, I think that's better. But where we really want to get to is the 200s and above. And so I don't think, many people are aware of that. And the danger is to stay stuck in the anger or the, just lower vibrational patterns. And unfortunately, that does not help you individually to truly live your full divine potential and, create the life that you want.
Yeah, I would completely agree. The only thing the only thing I'm going to say that I find is more lower vibrational than anger and guilt, and when I read, is jealousy. That for me, when I read, is more low vibrational than shame or guilt, both put together, to be honest. Because I believe that shame and guilt actually play into jealousy also, and sometimes it's in denial. But I would agree with you. And I actually found the Me Too movement, when it was really coming out and coming to light, interesting in how people reacted to it, because a lot of people don't talk about these things, right? So all of a sudden it was everywhere, and it was making people really uncomfortable. And I know that when I was working with clients, I would just be telling people that people being uncomfortable is what creates change, so it's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. It's for sure a good thing that it's happening, and it's for sure a good sign that things are moving. And I'm interested in saying, okay, so first, the Me Too movement is a good first step. What's next?
Exactly.
How do I get myself into a space where I'm high, at a higher vibration? Yeah.
What can I do? Where can I go?
Exactly.
How can I help myself?
Exactly. Yeah, because the thing is, our nervous system or our body is the thing that vibrates, right? Every single cell in our body has a vibrational frequency. It's not just our thoughts, right? Oftentimes we're taught that we create with our thoughts and we create with our mind, but that is actually not true, because our entire body is made up of vibration. And when we suppress trauma, it stays in the body, it stays in our cells it's embedded on a cellular level. So
We could have so many conversations for hours about this, Carolyn, because I actually run a biweekly women's Zoom group every Tuesday evening for an hour and a half. So I have women, about 20 to 22 women. We meet from all over. And I just guide the sessions, and these women are allowed to bring anything to the table, and they're anywhere from 18 to 75.
Wow.
So we meet and we talk, and they're all on the beginning parts of their spiritual path and trying to really own who they are. And, they have tons of questions, and how do they figure it out? How do they connect to their guides, and how do they, and we have some really great conversation. And one of the things that actually recently came up in one of our sessions was, how the law of attraction and thoughts create our reality, and affirmations and whatever. And I said to them, I always teach the people that I work with is, first of all, how to find what's true for you, because what's true for you in this journey might not be true for the next person because of where they're at and how they're growing. So we always talk about allowance and judgment, and allowing people to be where they're at on their path, and your truth isn't always anybody else's truth, and learning to figure out what's true for you. And then I tell them, so when we talk, if something isn't true for you, let me know about that. But if it feels good and light, it's right for you. And then we were talking about law of attraction and how your thoughts create your reality. And I said to them, you beautiful women need to understand that there's only some truth to that, because I have thoughts all day long that that may not be extremely pleasant, but a lot of them come from the energy that I'm picking up on. And I know they don't belong to me, but they still exist in my head.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I don't let them affect my emotions or change my vibration, they're not harming me or anybody else. So I try to explain to them that your thoughts only affect you if you allow them to affect your emotions, which then in turn affects your vibration. And that's the important thing about connecting with emotions too, is when you start to feel emotions, you really need to look at them and what are they telling you, whether they feel good or they feel bad. And we went through this huge thing because one of the women said, I've been practicing affirmations for 5 years and sometimes I feel worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes, but affirmations will never work if you don't believe them. You have to feel what it feels like to actually believe that affirmation and let that vibrate through your whole entire body and let the energy go outwardly from inside you into the universe in order to attract those experiences that feel like that vibration. And, so many light bulbs went off. And I said, so yes, affirmations are great. However, if you're not using them properly, they aren't going to help you. So your thoughts will create your reality, but only if they're affecting your vibration, which is noted by them affecting your emotions and being honest about it.
Yeah, and actually, everything that we want is already here. So as a clear sentient, you will understand this, because affirmations are actually more like you're kind of feeling in all kinds of different directions, and all of a sudden you're feeling something. You think you're imagining it, but you're actually just landing on a universe that feels right, and therefore you can imagine it, right? So it's not actually something that you're creating in your head. You're literally feeling something that's in the future and that's there for you. And so that's when the affirmation works, is when you're actually tuning into the right universe and you're just affirming that it's there. And you do that by what you're saying, when you're saying, yeah, this feels good, this feels light, so therefore it must be mine and it must be here for me. It's not, I'm not in that reality right now, but I'm on the sign that I'm feeling good. That I'm feeling good is a sign that I'm moving in the direction of it.
Yeah, I'm on my way there. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that you talk about that, because I find that a lot of healers and teachers don't thoroughly explain it.
Most
And
people
maybe,
don't know this. Most people really think that we create something or we make it happen. The truth is, everything is already here, and it seems like it comes. We do one thing and then it happens, but it is not a linear process in that we do A and then B appears. A, B, and C are already present at this time, and we allow ourselves to be in a reality where it's present in our life.
exactly.
By becoming a vibrational match. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. I just get so excited when people connect on the same level that I do.
Yeah, and one teacher that I've been following is, he's no longer alive, but his books, you might know them too, is David R. Hawkins. He was a medical doctor and a PhD and a well-known psychiatrist. So he explains this really good, and his books are really, I recommend them to everybody. Also.
That's a good point. I have read some of his books. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to this. Sexual abuse is something near and dear to my heart. What do you feel is one of the most crucial steps in order to start that healing journey from sexual abuse?
I think that the most crucial step is to realize that even though you have been a victim, somebody did this to you, you are not eternally a victim, and you're not eternally broken. And it doesn't mean that the way I look at it, okay, if I came here, no one has to experience, that would make sense. To me, this might be to me, so it would make sense. I want to learn the power and how I give away power, right? So every different, we're all here to grow, essentially, and we have different lessons to go through. And so when we can see that, okay, this was part of my past, so I can learn the lesson, then you don't have to feel victimized anymore. You have to be willing to grow, though. Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly it too. Like I speak differently in terms of lessons. I'm not really a believer in lessons because I
Mhm.
really believe that everything's a choice. And
Mhm.
if we actually tap into our being, we could avoid those situations. And however, so it's just an awareness of who we are, and how our spirit is growing at that point
Mhm.
in time. So if you want to call them lessons, fine. If you don't, fine. I just, the vibration around the word lesson, I just don't like it. So I try not to
Mhm.
use it when I'm, and also I just find when I'm working with my healing clients, the word lesson seems to scare them and
Mhm.
shut them down sometimes. So I try to approach
Yeah,
it
so
in a little bit
you
different
can
of a
say
like,
maybe there's things that I wanted to learn, right, on my path,
yeah, yeah,
or yeah, and like you said,
develop and grow.
if we were all completely realized, anyways,
Yes.
we wouldn't have any problem. There's
We would
still
be
things
living in a
going.
utopia.
Yeah, and it is possible, but it's possible for me. It's possible because I needed to have these more painful experiences to wake up, to see that it's actually possible, and to see where,
And I completely agree. I mean, we all do it, right? So
exactly.
it's there. So we're gonna pop off, Carolyn, and have a little bit of a break. Just so the listeners out there know, please do um, come back and join us. We're gonna pop off for about a 5 minute break, and then when we get back, I think I would like to talk about some of the blocks to healing, what you look like, or what that looks like for you, how you see that, and what you can, talk about regarding that, because I think a lot of people struggle with it. I know a lot of my clients come to me and say, um, like, why can't I do this? Like, what's holding me back? And I mean, the answer is always you. But I would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Hmm.
And then we'll just continue on. Maybe chat a little bit about your book and some other things. And yeah,
Sounds good.
okay, we'll see everybody on the other side of the break.
It's funny how it all played out. Broken dreams seldom get realized. For me, you were a part of life that escaped and left me outside. Who could see the will of time, and that you were still a friend of mine? Our story wasn't over yet, and no one can tell what's coming next. The journey is not ours to control. The journey is not ours to control. I'm glad that it is so. I'm lucky it is so. I'm running at the speed of light, trying to seize everything I desire. But as strange as it may sound, when I'm still, things seem to come around. The journey is not ours to control. The journey is not ours to control. The journey is not ours to control. so. I'm glad that it is so. I'm lucky it is so.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Surprise Your Spirit show. So we're just back from the other side of the break here. For anyone who's missed the first half and is possibly just hopping in to join us now, I have special guest Carolin Hauser joining me. Just to recap, she is a German-trained naturopathic doctor, a humanistic psychotherapist, and a family constellations facilitator, as well as an author. She has written the book Blossom, The 7 Steps to Sexual Healing, and she has an upcoming book called The Pleasure IQ. She's a speaker and teacher on the subjects of spirituality, healing, and women's empowerment. So I'm super pleased to have her here. She's from Santa Barbara, California. And so anyone who's just joining us, we're just going to pick up on our conversation. Please listen to the podcast if you missed the first half, as we've had some really good chats. Just about energy and how it affects our body and sexual abuse and those types of things. So Carolyn, just before the break, we were talking about sexual abuse and those types of things. And when we're talking about healing, I know I often have clients come to me. Usually they're asking for a reading because they want the answers. However, it turns out that they more need some spiritual guidance and some coaching sessions, just because I'm not a believer in giving people answers that if they don't discover them themselves, then they usually aren't ready to hear the information if they're not ready to accept it. So what do you feel are main blocks that people struggle with regards to healing?
I think part of it is really a misinformation, especially when it comes to trauma and sexual trauma, where people think they just have to process through it and maybe work on their emotions and so forth. And what I've learned from working in this field for over 20 years now is that it's much more an energetic and physical healing journey than mentally, like a mental or emotional one. And so not a lot of people know this. And so therefore, the reason why people don't want to go in the direction of healing is because they think they have to process it, they have to relive it. And so there's a lot of fear, right? They don't know that there's a way where you don't actually have to relive it, where you don't have to go into depression, where your life doesn't have to get completely derailed because you're emotionally so dragged down. So I think a lot of it's just not knowing, and it's not a real block. The block is the fear of, oh my God, I can't even go there. I don't want to go there.
Would it be safe to say you feel that the block is really that expectation that society puts on people of this is how you heal, instead of the commonality of what's out there, what we hear, what we see on television, and those types of things, as opposed to actually knowing there are other ways to do things. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because you said it's more of a physical thing. Please explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so just imagine that your body is like a house and your nervous system is like the wiring in the house. And when trauma happens, it's like a lightning strike hitting a house. And so when that happens, the whole electricity breaks down, wires might melt, the house might catch on fire. Yeah, all kinds of stuff happens. And after that's happened, the infrastructure in the house is literally somewhat destroyed. The electricity does not flow the way it flowed before after that's happened. And so it's the same with your body. Your energy circuits literally are fried and damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to heal it, you can't talk about it, right? You actually have to learn to be in your body. You have to learn to feel those places in your body. And so your own focused attention on your body, that's how you basically fix the melted down pathways. And, just to give you an image of, obviously it's a little bit more complicated than it, but it's a really good, it's a really good analogy, because it is about, energy that's measurable. And, we're not just talking woohoo kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Our body functions through, we are all made up of energy. Right. And so when you have the wires in your body that normally, where energy can flow freely, and then you have this impact and the energy doesn't flow freely anymore, that's when you become low vibrational, basically. And things get really hard just because your vibrational level dropped. Right? You're just not, your machine isn't working as good as it was before.
It's losing power.
Yeah. You're basically just sputtering along.
That's actually a really good analogy. It's interesting that you say you use a house analogy, because often when I'm working with women, who come to me with body image issues, which usually stem back to sexual abuse, we talk about it all the time, and I always say to them, you need to pull yourself out of this. And I'm not saying it's easy, but you need to step back and look at it like this. There are millions of people on the planet, and your spirit, your true authentic self, chose your body, the one that it's in right now. So it's choosing you to use this body as a vehicle. It loves your body, or it would have chose someone else's body.
Mm-hmm.
So if your spirit can love its vehicle, why can't you? Like, you're doing a disservice to your spirit by not harnessing and honoring that physical body, regardless of the shape or size, and what you do or don't like about it. It was perfect for your spirit. So you need to look. I usually have women end up crying because they don't look at it that way. Like, we're not taught to look at it that way. Well, if my spirit, which is, all is the highest divine power, it's why I have life, chose this, then why can't I? Well, you certainly can. You really have to make a choice to do so. And it's just about letting you be you and not worrying about anything else.
Yeah, and some people, it might sound like, okay, how do I connect to my spirit, or how do I connect to my higher self? And you actually don't need to know how. Intentions are a very powerful tool. I work a lot with intentions, because they're they're literally like anchors. So you could just intend, you could say, oh, I don't know how to connect to my higher self, but today I'm intending to really be connected and be shown. And you'll start getting a sense of, and you already, we all already do have a sense of our true nature. We just kind of don't live from that space for the most part.
Yes, out of fear. We don't do it out of fear because we're not sure what's over there. So we avoid it. And if we would do it more often, we'd realize how much more ease comes into our life.
Exactly.
As opposed to the resistance we create by actually avoiding that space or that path. So I just found it really interesting that you use the house analogy, because I use it all the time. Like, this is your spirit's home, and it loves being here. And when it stops love being here, you really need to worry, because that means you're not here anymore. So you really need to start loving your home. Okay, great. So what about women? With the Me Too movement, what steps can women take in order to feel safe with men again? But I don't really think it's men per se. I think it's with the human race, period, and kind of have that faith and get it back. That, how do they get past that experience in order to not have to feel so on edge all the time or guarded or living in fear, I guess?
Yeah, it really comes back to first learning and understanding about physiology. And so part of our nervous system is the brain, right? It's a big part of our nervous system. And there's three parts to our brain. The lowest part, when you put your hand on your neck, it's the reptilian, our oldest instinctual brain. That's where all the sensory input from, from the world comes in first and kind of gets rated, whether it's safe or not safe, and basically that brain decides what is done with the information. And then we have the midbrain, and then we have the higher brain, like our frontal cortex and the top of our brain, which is really, that's where our genius is. That's where we can connect to our higher self from. We can't connect from the reptilian brain to our higher self. And so when trauma happens, what happens is that by default, the reptilian brain gets put in charge, basically, much more than it's, in somebody who hasn't experienced trauma. And the reptilian brain is its main job is to keep us safe and keep us surviving. So when you have a reptilian brain that's very active, your life experience is that you're constantly in survival because that's what its job is. And so in many ways, knowing this and then learning tools how you can basically help this part of the brain to calm down and switch off and go back to its normal state where it's there when we need it in like real life threatening situations. That's what's required. And some of the ways, breathing, there's different breathing techniques that can help you. There's different ways and practices that bring you back into your body that will help you. Now, I actually have a bunch of them on my website. My website is called womenintheflow.com. Different processes, but the feeling of safety comes from basically helping your brain to relax and go back to its normal state.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. And I mean, it's something that I also teach also, but I just tell people we need to practice on being present here in the moment. Can't be going off elsewhere, right? So, but yeah, that's a very great explanation for anyone who is looking for understanding.
Yeah, and I mean, because it's connected to survival, it's really hard to do because anybody has tried to not go off or not get anxiety, and it's just automatic. It's so
Yeah.
because of the hormones, right?
Yes.
So the first thing is really knowing and then seeing that it's happening. Okay, here it's happening again. Okay, now I know what's happening. I know that it's not me. There's nothing wrong with me. My brain is just, my brain has been changed and altered, and it will take a little while for me to basically rewire it again.
Yeah, it's that retraining, and it's learning to recognize. So the sooner you intervene, the sooner you can stop it.
Yep.
Okay, I'm super curious about family constellations ever since you mentioned it. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, and the best way to describe it is really just kind of describe the first family constellation I received. And so I went to a weekend workshop where I didn't know anybody. There were about 16 people. They all had different issues. Some had cancer. Some were, their relationship were falling apart. So all kinds of issues. And so throughout the weekend, everybody who wanted to work on the weekend would just, when it was their time, raise their hand. And at some point it was my turn. And when it was my turn, the facilitators asked me to basically pick 6 people from these strangers, from the people in the audience. And so I picked someone for my mother, my father, my siblings, and the eating disorder. And then they asked me to place these people in the room. So we were sitting in a circle, and I took everybody by their shoulders, kind of standing behind them, and just gently guided them to different places in the space that felt right, intuitively right to me. And that's actually why it's called constellations, because you literally constellate these different pieces. It could be your physical organs, it could be your inner child in you, it could be money in you, it could be your work and the people that work there in you. So you can constellate anything, and traditionally we use representatives, people. And so then what's magic is by placing these people into the field, into a relationship with each other or a dynamic, they have access to a field that goes with that dynamic. And the facilitator basically just is almost like an investigator or it's very investigative because he basically just asks these people, there's people not looking at each other. Some people have really strong symptoms, some people will fall down, others will shake. So there can be and will have intense feelings. They will feel the emotions or the issues of the person or of the thing that they're representing, and the facilitator kind of just asks question and finds out what's going on. And usually it starts out where the picture is very disjointed and people are not connecting and love is not flowing. And then the facilitator's job is to kind of find out what needs to be said, what needs to be moved, what gesture needs to be made, so that this whole system can move into a place where everybody is in their right place and where there is peace and where the energy is flowing again. And so it's very miraculous in some ways. And, I've been doing it for 20 years and it's never what I expect. There's always, I've seen things, one of the most extreme things was somebody had asthma and he didn't know why. And in the constellation, what came out is that his great aunt was buried alive and nobody knew. And so as soon as that was acknowledged, the asthma went away. That was really one of the wildest things, and it will come out through the constellation because everything is known in the field, so it's incredibly powerful to resolve anything. People that have suffered for, tens of, even have people that have suffered for 40 years from the same thing, and they have a session and their entire life is completely changed and they're a completely different person. And it saved my life.
I know how it works, just being an energy healer. I work so well with kids and helping parents to understand what's going on. I've had some amazing experiences, with kids coming to me and having one session and me saying to the parent, this is what's going on. This is what you can do to fix it. And within weeks, I get emails saying my child is a whole new child. And, or my child is back to who they were.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they can tell me this is where they lost, but, and we talk about like what events took place, and it's not always necessarily anything that happened to the child either. And sometimes it is ancestral trauma being brought forward that the child is carrying the energy of. And so I have never heard of family constellations before, and I'm just extremely intrigued by it.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And it's very popular in Europe. It's starting, when I first I'm from Germany originally. So when I first moved to the States, nobody knew of it 14 years ago. Now every third person that I talk to has heard it or has some idea. So it is definitely getting more.
It's definitely something I'm going to look into because it's very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book, Blossom?
Yeah, so Blossom is really a 7-step journey, and I developed it in a way so that people can really, it's a 7-week journey where you have something to do every day that's kind of building on each other. Because in order to heal your nervous system, you really need to learn to be in your body, and you need to learn to use your body as a healing instrument. And for anybody that's gone through trauma, you know that that's not easy. So there is a leading up to it, and then also really, once you know how to do it, then taking it into your relationships and into the real world. Because I'm German, like I said, and I'm really interested in making things practical for people. And I'm also really interested in having people create real results for themselves, right? Not just like, okay, I feel a little better, but no, I want you to have a really good relationship. I want you to be able to relax. I want you to be able to be successful in what you do. I want you to be able to know your purpose and live your purpose. I believe that there's enough for everybody. Right? Anybody's meant to have an abundant and fulfilling life and really give their gifts and make money through their gifts and so forth. And so the book will help you, give you tools how you, once you are feeling better and safer in your body, how you then navigate your life towards really allowing yourself to be your unique self and finding a career or finding ways to make money with that. And so forth. It's all connected.
Very interesting. I'm excited to read it just to see what you have in there. I've been reading so many books lately,
Hmm.
just out of interest sake and getting to know a lot of my guests and what they have to offer and what they have to share. And thank you so much for being here with me this evening. It's truly been a pleasure. I feel like I've learned a ton, and the listeners have gotten a lot of information. Before we end this show, Carolyn, do you want to let the listeners know how they can find you and anything else you'd like to share with them?
Yeah. So the easiest way to find me is really to go to my website, which is womenintheflow.com. On there's a link to join my free Facebook group. I have a free Facebook group where I do daily lives and energy work. On the website itself, you can order the book and you can obviously learn more about me. But really, if you want to connect with me personally, join the Facebook group, and I'm very active in there. Bring your friends, and the more the merrier. And then also I do retreat. One of my favorite ways to work with people, and one of the most effective ways I've found, is to actually take people on retreats. So if you want to find out more, just on my website, there's a button that says work with me. You just fill out an application, and then I set up a conversation with you and find out what the best fit is for you. And then what I want to leave people with is that we don't have power over other people, we don't have power over our circumstances, but we do have power over our own energetic state. And so in my life, it has paid off tremendously to make my own energetic space my top priority and basically make that my focus, right? So instead of working hard and going into doing mode, my first priority is always, okay, how do I feel? What do I need to feel? Like what you were saying, is there any emotions that I need to tend to? What do I need to shift? How can I shift? And to really make that the focus, and it's paid off. It's paid off well.
So basically, it's really just being aware of your levels of joy and making that your priority, and then everything follows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. That was Carolin Hauser. So if anyone is looking for her, you can find her at womenintheflow.com. And this is going to be my last show for this season. So we'll take our break for the summer, and I will have some new guests and some new things lined up when I come back. And my Facebook page will be back up and running, and some other changes will have happened by then. So thank you all for being here. Please don't be a stranger. If you have topics for the show, please fill out the form on my website, the contact form, drop them there drop them there for me. I will still be checking my email. I'm still seeing personal clients. Even though some of my business and advertising has pulled back a little bit, I'm still around, and I love to hear from everyone. And we will catch you guys all soon. Enjoy the summer, and I will catch you all back in the fall. Take care.
Misty mountains, dusty roads ahead, crossing rivers, dreaming of a bed from a window in the mighty clouds up high. I can touch a stream of gold above, breaking through with hope of light. Sunshine on the broken, let the summer come again, let the heat find all the summer come again. Let the heat find all the frozen. Let the forces